Batman and Robin, issue 16, legacy number 82. This is Philip Kennedy Johnson writing with Carmine Di Giandomenico and Miguel Medonça on the art. Although the cover just says Medonça, so League of Comic Geeks might be incorrectly telling me fibs.
No, Giandomenico had two pages.
Did he? Okay. So yeah. I'm not imagining
so I think it said pages 6 and 7.
Okay. So yeah, I think this is getting better as it goes. I think I'm digging it a bit more as it builds up this mystique of the killer, and kind of, as much as it's inserting stuff into Bruce's past, it's not like that wild. It's like, it's so this other woman who became a cop who was also studying under the same detective when he was in the UK, kind of thing.
Yeah, I do like, because it fits with the theme of Memento Mori, right? The reminder that everyone will die. And it's this constant reminder that Bruce's life has been surrounded by death, right? Like, even before he was Batman, he was in this class and they were going over, these victims of this thing and of whatever Memento Mori is. And yeah, just that idea and how it's constantly tying back that death is kind of this not just a motivator for Bruce, but like it's always surrounding him. And it's ever present. And yeah, God, Philip Kennedy Johnson's good.
Yeah, the book opens with a bunch of true crime addicts who are at the Arkham Asylum, because obviously Arkham Tower is now the actual hospital and prison now. So it's just this derelict building, and they're basically here talking about Memento Mori, the killer and all that. And they're geeking out about it. But then it seems like spirits come to life in Arkham Asylum and kill them all. Also, the guy leading this tour looks like Walter White. Just going to mention that.
100% he does. Look like Heisenberg without the hat.
Yep, that's all I could think when I looked at him. Yeah, so like they all die, and then it's a spooky couple of pages, but it's very different to everything else we've seen in the story so far. And then you'll cut to Batman and Robin at the crime scene with the police and looking into everything. And the big thing here is we see that Damien is still kind of being haunted with the memories of the girl who got hurt under his watch back last issue. So really digging them continuing this. But it distracts him for a little bit, and Batman notices he's distracted. But once again, though, we get to like, okay, more of this backstory and like what this set of murders that Batman was. I mean, I shouldn't even say Batman because he wasn't Batman yet, but the Bruce Wayne was present for when he was training under this detective, and we get a different crime scene in London from years ago, as they're discussing what. And even then, this was meant to be a copycat killer of some old murders, because it was like set up just like this old murders from like back in like the end of the 1800s or whatever. So yeah, this stuff's super interesting, especially then when it turns out that this cop from France who was there in these flashbacks is showing up, this Lieutenant Lautrec. Is that how you say that?
I think so. French is not a thing, but yeah, close enough.
Yeah. So she's here, and Batman immediately is like, wait, why does a French like policewoman need what was your interest in this copycat killer? And she's like, I don't think it's a copycat. It's like the details of this are identical. And Batman's like, it's not, it's a copycat because the killer's been dead for a long time. It's impossible. Although, of course, the end of this issue is Batman finally saying, oh no, I heard his voice, it's definitely him. Okay, I was somehow wrong. It's just him. Okay.
Here's my issue with some of these Batman stories where he's constantly saying, like, there's no way this could be something mystical or like that.
It feels weird because he's not in his own little universe. He's tied with all these superheroes and stuff.
He dated Zatanna and he knows Constantine. Like, can he open up his mind a little bit and go, you know what? Maybe this is some kind of demonic entity that's coming back to haunt me.
I think.
But he's like, no, it's a copycat.
I think you could maybe read it as like he doesn't want to believe it's him because that's so traumatic to think that it's this killer who's back. So he's basically forcing himself into this lie of ignorance. Because it makes him feel better.
No, then that works. I mean, it's one of those things that anytime there's this type of story, he also fights a mudman that can transform in basically a werebat. So like, there's just also Poison Ivy talks to plants. There's some weird things out there that sometimes when Bruce has this closer, but it does make sense. By the end of the issue, it definitely feels it's more about trauma, because when you look at the true crime people, and this is where I feel that Philip Kennedy Johnson's making headway into the story, that it seems to be more about trauma and like the way that true crime people kind of cast all that away because it's all about the story and the fandom and like being really into this grotesque stuff.
Yeah, it's all about the mystique of the killer and all that rather than anything else.
And you tend to forget about the victims and that these are real people, and it's all about what the next piece of content is. So I definitely feel like that's kind of where it's going, that this is whoever Memento is, whatever it is, it kind of thrives on that trauma. And there's no more traumatized hero out there than Batman, right?
Yeah.
Than Bruce Wayne. So it makes sense. It's almost like a feedback loop kind of deal.
Yes, the podcasts wanted to look the eyes of Memento in the eye, and Memento came in, took his sunglasses off, and gave them a good look as they were dying.
What's that?
Have you not seen Terrifier 3 yet?
No, I have, but you're talking about that guy. Okay, the girl.
The girl, yes.
Yes, I was looking more mystical, less Art the Clown murdering people with a chainsaw.
No, it was just more the podcast, like the true crime podcaster angle. It's just funny to me now that we're at a point where this is becoming a recurring type of character that's in fiction, is the podcaster of some kind. It's just kind of funny to me.
Well, it's just because it's like, right, like, at the end of the day, we're just two guys that like comics that are talking about comics, right? And at the end of the day, that doesn't matter that other comic readers are going to seek us out. It's when people are trying to use these platforms to talk about dead people and, go off of that. I do think that if you're a creative person, there is kind of a way to attack that idea. And I think people like, Damien Leone from Terrifier and Philip Kennedy Johnson, they have a viewpoint towards that. And you can play with it. It's different than when the character named Podcast shows up in Ghostbusters, because that just feels like you're trying to gain, not even nostalgia points. That's not the word I'm looking for.
And don't
relevancy.
Don't even forget Halloween 2018. There was podcasters in that movie, professional podcasters even.
Right, but I feel like that's another one where David Gordon Green uses them as to drive the lesson home, of kind of what's going on here. And in Terrifier 3, it felt
like a cheap plot crutch to me in that movie. But
it felt like David Gordon Green didn't have it thought out as much as this here, right? Like, but anyways, it is a little crazy that that's where we are. But as someone who's my significant other loves all that true crime stuff, there is a whole lot of it out there, and you can look at it as this. Like, let's look at the John Bonet one that just came out on Netflix. If you've been around the true crimes, around that element, there's a rush quality to some of these now, and people are just eating them up, that they're not taking time to actually not investigate. They're not taking the time to actually get into why these cases, why people are drawn to them. They're just pumping them out. And here, these people that are on this tour of Arkham, right? It gets to the point where they're just here to see something grotesque. They don't even seem to care about the idea of Memento. But yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to make any serious point about the comic or even true crime podcasters. I was just commenting on the idea of how many like podcast characters are popping up in fiction now. So you went off on a tangent. I wasn't getting to any of that.
I enjoy that though, because it's creatives engaging with this idea that maybe we've gone too far. So anytime something like this can reflect actual society, I think it's a win.
Yeah, it's just like a weird thing, because it's like you have to accept that there's enough. It's enough of a thing now that sometimes a character is going to be a podcaster in a movie, and that's kind of weird to me. Just because it feels like such a new thing. It feels.
I mean, what would have that been 20 years ago? What do we think? Is that someone with a blog now? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, someone on a message board, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
But what's that 20 years before that though? If you're going back to the 80s, like what's that?
I don't know.
Someone who's in a fan club, like
fan club, or something along those lines. Yeah, I don't know.
It's it's strange. It's just, I don't know. It's just a weird moment of reflection that I can't quite parse. Anyway, Batman and Robin are training, and Robin, his head's not in it. He wants to talk to Batman about what's going on, and Batman gets kind of frustrated and says, "Fine, you clearly don't want to train. Let's talk about what's going on." And he finds out that that Robin, has been skipping school, and he wants to sort of like not patrol tonight, or not, because Batman wants to go to Arkham and interrogate someone. Turns out to be Scarecrow later, but we don't know that yet. And Robin says, "Hey, can I ditch that since you're going with that lieutenant lady anyway, and I can go to something else?" And it turns out that Damian has recently been volunteering at the hospital based on stuff that he's read in his, in Jonathan Wayne's what?
Thomas Wayne.
Thomas Wayne, sorry. It's because I just mentioned Scarecrow. I got Jonathan.
I know what you meant, but Jonathan Kent, Martha Kent,
yeah,
Martha Wayne, Thomas. Yeah.
Wires are getting crossed. But yeah, because he's been reading Thomas Wayne's journal about what he used to do and stuff, and because he's been feeling guilty about the girl, and when he was there visiting her, someone said, "Hey, would you like to volunteer?" And he sort of signed up for it. I actually really like this as an interesting development for Damian, and kind of like battling back against Batman, especially when Batman like tries to kind of like say, "Hey, like, you have a father to talk to. I didn't, so you don't have to go and like find yourself and who you're going to be like I did." And Damian hits back with, "You had Pennyworth, and I'm not going to have anyone dying based on my mistakes like he did for yours." And like Batman's left standing there, and I'm like, holy shit, Damian just hit him with it. The only thing I don't like about this scene is there's a bit just before this where Damian's saying that he's been when he signed up to be a volunteer, he forged Bruce's signature on the consent form, and Batman gets mad and yells, "Excuse me." And for some reason, that felt really weird to me. I almost imagine Batman being like, "Yeah, that's my boy," to that, rather than like,
well, yeah.
I just wasn't expecting to get.
That put. Oh, go ahead.
This is just such a normal like parent being mad at their kid for something moment. I feel like Batman and Robin as a father and son duo would be beyond like I feel like Damian's probably forged his signature on a bunch of school slips already. Not because he was trying to get away with that, and just because Batman doesn't want to stop and take time for that. Like, he's too busy being Batman.
I was gonna say, this is a man that puts on a fake mustache and pretends to be somebody else. I don't think he'd be that upset with his son forging his signature.
Yeah, but the art in the line "excuse me" just felt like such a non like Batman line.
But it does feel like again normal kind of parenting kind of vibes too, which is a nice it's a nice tether to remind you that this is still kind of a father-son relationship book. So I don't mind it as much, but yeah, it feels weird, especially when you followed up with the Alfred died because you made mistakes. It's just like, no, Alfred died because you went into Gotham. You weren't supposed to.
I mean, that's true. I don't know if it's trying to comment on the actual events of the book, though.
I don't think it is either, but I'm like, that's not what happened. It wasn't because of Bruce's mistake.
Yeah, but Damian's not like, but the mistake's not like anything that happened at the moment in that story. The mistake is because you became Batman, Alfred died. Like, he's like, that's the point he's making. He's not saying it's because of anything he did during that story. That stuff's irrelevant.
Yeah, no, but if that's the case, though, then that's just Damian just being a little a-hole at that point, Well,
I'm not necessarily arguing that. I'm just saying that's not the point of what you said. So it's not like you can be pedantic and say, "Well, no, technically it's your fault, Damian," but that's not really what he's getting at. So yeah, the next scene is at Arkham Tower. Batman meets up with the lieutenant, and she's like really annoyed that she has to go through the metal detectors when Batman just gets to swoop in anywhere he wants.
She's not wrong though. Like, if you look at her as like this outsider to Gotham, being like, "So y'all just make extra rules for him, where he doesn't have to play by any rules." Cool, got it.
Yeah, she's definitely not on team let Batman do his job. But it turns out they're there to see Scarecrow, they're there to see Jonathan Crane, and basically because this drug that all the victims had in their system is this thing that's supposed to be extinct, the one person Batman thinks would be able to recreate it might be Jonathan Crane. After all, his specialty is fear toxins and whatnot.
Yeah, pharmaceuticals that make you fear things.
Yeah, so it turns out the lieutenant's very well read and kind of takes over the interrogation and says, "Hey, you made some of this stuff when you were in college, and some people ended up in the hospital with the exact symptoms of this drug. So there's a lot of evidence to suggest that you did recreate this, and this isn't just the chasing a dragon. And so Batman even has a little smirk in the art, which is nice, because the art is very good. As much as I complained about his reaction shot, and that one's, it wasn't because the art was bad, it was just because I didn't feel like the reaction was correct. Yeah.
Right.
The art is generally very good in this issue, actually. Very moody. All the stuff with them walking into the Arkham Tower was really good stuff. But Batman basically goes into Batman mode when Scarecrow won't talk and demands to know who came and got you to make this, who recreated this drug, who paid you for this or whatever, and gets angry, starts slamming on the desk, and the lieutenant's kind of like freaking out a little bit, especially when Batman like flips the table up, and she's clearly like, this is not police procedure, you don't like get scary and interrogate the prisoner like this. And Batman's yelling, who is Memento, tell me, and is really going off. But then all of a sudden, right, and you can kind of, there's a little bit of build up to it, but Batman all of a sudden in the next page has turned around and has kicked the guard in the face, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And then he immediately says and explains it, you weren't pointing that gun at me, you were pointing at Crane, almost like you were going to kill him before he could tell me what he knows. So then he'd demand to know something. But then the guy that he's holding presses a button that causes an explosion elsewhere in the building. And so, the alarms start going off and like chaos starts to ensue. And it does sound like Scarecrow at one point as well was about to say something. Like he's like, he says he's the devil and he crossed an ocean to punish you. But yeah, that was pretty much it. He just wanted the poppy and that was it. But he was starting to talk.
So yeah, the thing they're looking for is called Gravedigger's Poppy, right? Which I think that's a pretty bad name for something like that is going to cause these hallucinations, right? Because that's what we see. What happens when Memento shows up, and also did you bring up that 3 people that Memento spared 3 people, and the guard is one of them.
No, I didn't mention that. You're right.
Yeah.
So yeah, because when we were looking at the Arkham Asylum stuff earlier, there was footprints of like 3 people who weren't there amongst the bodies, and this seems to be one of the survivors that were spared.
And then we start seeing those wispy, undead things start to come down the hall with this, really scary version of Memento behind them. So really spooky stuff.
Yeah, that final page is very, very good. It's very atmospheric. It's like sort of the walls have turned red, but there's this sort of white mist coming down the hall. And I actually don't know which one of those are meant to be like his spirits and which ones are just Arkham prisoners running for their lives. Because the guy at the front looks like he's running from the rest of them, but maybe that's just my misinterpretation of it.
So are we thinking the Memento is because when you introduce this Gravedigger's Poppy it's an hallucinogen, right? It's not. So are we thinking this is almost like a culty kind of thing, and that people are hearing the same voice because of the drug? Right? And does that mean that Bruce was exposed to this way back in the day?
It's interesting you say this because, I mean, I don't know about being exposed back in the day. I don't know about that. But when the fire starts and this smoke starts coming in through the vents, which is not necessarily smoke from the fire, it may just be the chemical being pumped in to the room. Batman's only got 1 gas mask, so he gives it to the lieutenant and says, "Wear this." He just tanks it, right? So this idea that it's after that moment where he decides to do that, and then the Memento starts speaking over the comms. That's when Batman says, "Oh, then I heard it. I know his voice." So there is some credence there to what you just said, that maybe because he's breathed this stuff in and then he hears the voice, it maybe does lend some ideas to, oh, this character isn't really there potentially, but it's something that he's seeing because he's breathed this stuff in. I'd have to go back and look at the end of issue 1 though, when we get a glimpse of him, because I can't remember how it presented him then. But there is definitely some interesting wiggle room here to say, oh, maybe he's just hearing this because he's been haunted from the memories, and it's almost like his brain's filling in what the voice sounds like, as opposed to it actually being him now. But I will say this mystery has gotten more interesting with each issue and how they've built it up, the whole cult aspect to it. And
the reason he only has 1 mask too is because that Robin always carries the spare.
Yes.
Right. So, and Robin not being there Batman didn't really plan to, you know, have more than one mask here. So that was a nice little twist.
Yeah, I'm going back to the opening scene. Yeah, okay, I just wanted to confirm it. You do see some mist come into that scene before all the characters see the quote-unquote spirits. So it may just be a case of there's no spirits, it's just people, it's just a cult that are coming to kill them, but they look like spirits because they're all been drugged with this stuff.
Yes.
Or maybe there isn't any real people. Maybe they just think they're being attacked by something.
And they kill each other, right?
Yeah, they kill each other. Yeah, because they say that at one point, right? That their nails have got blood under them. No, well, that wasn't in the present day. That was in the flashback. The case from London. But yeah, that's what they said. That they may have killed each other. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of fun stuff, man. Like, again, the whole aspect of trauma to Batman and kind of what this memento represents.
Yeah, do you think that means then that next issue potentially Batman is going to be like dangerous because he's read this stuff in, and maybe Robin's going to have to come in and fight him?
Maybe, but also knowing what we know about Batman and his resistance to these kind of toxins, maybe it won't get him fully, right? Because if this is something that Jonathan Crane has synthesized before, you would think that Batman's been inoculated a little bit, right? So, but yeah, maybe along the line that he's going to fight his way out, and he's thinking that he's fighting Memento, but it's people in Arkham.
To be fair, there's no reason to suspect that Jonathan Crane's ever used this in any of his stuff. Like they don't make it sound like it's something he's been using. It's something he experimented with once, but it doesn't sound like it's part of his usual fear toxin. I think the real question is that Scarecrow does say, you know, someone wants revenge and they've traveled across the ocean to get to you. Someone is behind this. If it's not actually Memento, there is someone who's putting this into motion and releasing the gas, even if Memento himself isn't hit. I guess the obvious answer is either the cop that was training him in London or possibly even the lieutenant, if they want to go that route. Now, both of those are not exciting prospects, but they both would have traveled across the ocean, which is why they're kind of obvious candidates at the moment. Plus, they're kind of like easy twist to call just because it's typical. It would be boring writing for it to be either of them, if I'm honest. But so I hope it's not. I hope it's not, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I hope it's not too. I don't know. It doesn't make sense if it's the lieutenant, just because like she was there, unless we're doing some kind of culty aspect of things, right? Where you know, you have to keep the Legend of Memento going forward or whatever. But why exactly? It also feels like, unless it's just the hallucination, it feels like it's someone who knows that Bruce is Batman, right? So that would make it seem like it's larger than life than just, you know, this police detective from back in the day or the lieutenant too. Give it a more mystical kind of aspect as well. Because I always kind of like that in a story. It's kind of Temple of Doom where Indy is like, well, no, it's always this. There's always an explanation behind things. But then there's the one piece of the story that is mystical, that does have these, you know, magical elements to it that is beyond explanation. So maybe it's a little of A, a little of B, and, you know, we'll see.
I mean, maybe somehow it is Memento still, but he's using everything. But if we're going with the idea that they're just like, he's just heard it because of the drug, then maybe, I don't know. I don't know who the compelling answer would be to who it is.
That's true.
But I'm curious. They've got me interested. Like I'm definitely intrigued by the mystery, and it's led to a lot of cool horror movie style visuals in this issue, which is nice. Yeah,
for sure. It was definitely one of those books I was like, oh, I gotta read Batman and Robin, and then I finished it. I was like, okay, Philip Kennedy Johnson's working again. We're cooking here.
Yeah. It wasn't like an instant hit after the first issue, but it's definitely felt like it's coming together over the next couple. So. Very pleased. Art's very strong as well. Arguably the most coherent art. I mean, it's only the second book, so I just mean versus action, but
and Dia Domenico did the flashback pages too.
Yeah, that makes sense because those are the ones that stick out as being different.
So
yeah, no, it's very good. What are you giving Batman and Robin, Matt?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I will just go with the straight 8 for now, but I am digging it and it's getting better, so cool to see.